Oh, excellent. Thank you.
I'm sorry, I didn't know that.
So my husband and I arrived in Germany a few days ago. We were in Munich and Stuttgart and Frankfurt, and I bought a traditional German dirndl dress. I don't know why, only because, yeah, I don't know. Well, here's the thing. Pete said to me last night at dinner, he said, you know what you should do? And my Israeli friends will love this. He said, you should wear your dreidel dress. Dreidel dress, yeah, okay. So he's a bright guy, but didn't quite get that right. So anyhow, I'm thrilled to be here and very, very thrilled to be speaking after Dan Jenkins, because he kind of took it in a different direction and talked about non-technical things and talked about customer service, which is my passion. From behind the microphone, I deal with a lot of different companies and different industries. And it occurred to me a while back that my job is a great deal more complex than just voicing prompts and sending off an invoice and getting money to do so. I actually really care about the quality of telephone prompts. And I love it when they're done well. And I hate it when the same old systems keep getting replicated again and again. So I have some audio I'm going to try to play, and I hope it works. Okay, here we go. Have a listen to this. Nope, not happening. How strange. Okay. This is like a dangerous demo. Oh, yeah, and there's the other one. Okay, so I have no idea why this isn't working. Do we have audio? HDMI? Yeah. We have a room full of geeks. Do you think it's working in some way?
Yeah, you're on the HDMI, but
that's strange.
there should be the output for...
Yep, does not seem to be playing. Exactly. Mysterious. Okay, talk amongst yourselves. Yeah, it's embedded in everything, so it should work. Okay, well, I could probably just... not to worry. Okay.
You know where you have the sound preferences? Because I don't see there for the...
Oh, okay.
Where's the Windows expert here?
Oh, there it is right there. Okay, so that's full volume right there, so hopefully. Okay, let's just see if this works. No, I don't think it is. No, that is not going to work. Okay, I'll just have to do them live. Okay, so, yeah, not working. Not to worry. Okay, so the sound file that was going to illustrate this slide goes something like this. Thank you for calling XYZ. For accounting, press 1. For business development, press 2. For technical support, press 3. To hear these options again, press 0. It's okay. That's a prompt that I voice all day, every day, multiple times a day, because people think that's all there is. And that's all IVR is for, is just to answer the phone and to shuttle callers into various factions. This makes me laugh every time I see it. Okay, so I voiced the IVR for a colonoscopy clinic in Minnesota. And the gist of the whole thing was, listen, we know that next to an audit, this is your least favorite thing in the world to discuss. We get it. All of our intake people are registered nurses. You can't ask them anything they haven't heard before. So that was kind of the whole position on this colonoscopy clinic IVR. And while it's an uncomfortable topic, I was really glad to have voiced that, because this is an example of people taking an IVR and using it for a great deal more than how it's traditionally used. It was addressing the typical caller head on, determining why they were calling, and forming kind of an ersatz relationship, for better or for worse, in this context. So what IVR has been like in the past has been pretty much a waiting room. What I notice is that IVR is just kind of a holding area for callers until we can get to your issue. It is formulaic, so people hear elements in IVRs and think, well, we need to put in the phrase, please listen to all options before making your choice. People feel obligated to put that into their systems. It's not necessary. IVR is expected. When people call a company, they are not geared up to listen to anything innovative or imaginative. They expect it to be, for this, press that. For this, press that. And it's not part of the corporate brand. This is a really key thing. Some people think that the corporate brand stops with their website, or that actually the identity of a company starts when they get an actual live operator. I maintain it should start the minute that the phone connects. It's not used to its full potential, and it is just plain boring. So cookie cutter systems keep getting produced day in and day out. People are afraid to be a little bit unusual or weird, and so they just keep producing the same systems over and over again. So yeah, the corporate brand, it amazes me that people put so much thought into how their websites come across. They put a whole lot of emphasis on their social media identity. If they invest in any kind of broadcast, TV or radio, so much planning goes into exactly how their company is portrayed through those mediums. Trade show presence. It's amazing the amount of graphic design and thought goes into the actual presentation of a company at a trade show, and even in printed materials. And even in their office decor, they spend way more time thinking about their corporate identity than how it is portrayed over their IVR and their call center persona. And it's kind of a missing part of the whole paradigm. So in my experience, I've identified 3 areas that IVR should not be. Believe it or not, people actually set up the idea that the IVR is like a bouncer that velvet ropes people away from the solution that they've called about. There's actually kind of a stern persona to the phone system of, nope, you're not getting through to anybody soon, so just get comfortable, get some water, sit down, because you're not going to get to a solution anytime soon. It's not friendly. It's actually very inhospitable. There is the perception that an IVR is like a great big babysitting service. Again, kind of a holding pen for unruly babies until we can get to your issue. And believe it or not, there is actually kind of an essence in IVR of kind of a country club feeling. How often have we heard the expression, we're busy taking care of other customers. If you had called just 5 minutes before, you would be getting the service that this lucky person is getting who called 10 minutes before you did. So I always try to get clients to think about not creating an atmosphere of, oh, well, sucks to be you, we're helping someone else. So do not think of IVR as a great big purgatory area where people are waiting to be served or waiting to find out what it will be like to deal with that company. So I have sort of a certain vision of what IVR should be. If there's an IVR heaven, it will be more of a gateway than anything else, and preferably a gateway in Santorini. A gateway that actually is a true greeting place for callers to get the idea of this is the company, and this is what they're about, and this is what it's going to be like to transact with the company. It should be an integral part of their brand. The brand, again, should not end with the website and should not start when they get a live agent on the phone. The brand should be conveyed through the IVR. And the customer service needs to start at that point. And it should always respect the caller's time. The caller's time and the caller's patience is way, way shorter than you think it is. So what does this specifically mean for Kamailio and RTC in general? Well, of course, you're going to be, producing systems for end users, and by doing so in a conscious way and in a way that you might be in a position of advising your end users of what to do with their IVR, you are in the position to provide a seamless, consistent image throughout your customer's system. It is a projection of, oh, good heavens, what is happening here? Okay, it's a projection of professionalism. What? And a beginning or extension of the corporate's brand and identity. And it's also a statement of your competency as well. And for bonus points, so Ulia and I were actually discussing this right before this morning about how finding a professional voice talent is a really big part of the whole thing, and it wasn't that difficult for you to find someone in Sweden. There are
In the radio.
in the radio industry, yeah. But I'm sure if you dug, you could find somebody who does IVR as their wheelhouse. But a lot of people think
Your Swedish is...
my Swedish is Swedish chef from the Muppet Show, and that's pretty much it. Yeah, Lutkafisk. That's all I know. So a lot of people just think, well, let's just get the receptionist to voice it. She speaks, she sounds great, we'll just get her to do it. That's fine. She looks a little sexually harassed there, actually. The problem with that is that she will probably get promoted, move to a different department, move to another company, and then you will have to get someone else to supply the voice to the IVR, which is never a good idea. There's a huge cable consortium up in Canada where I live, and they have, last time I called them when our cable was out, there was probably about 12 different voices on their system, and it sounded extremely amateurish. So the idea of getting the receptionist to do it also will mean that she'll have to record it live over the phone with all the voice fricatives happening over the telephone receiver. Having it done professionally in a studio is really the only way to go. All too often, your client, the guy that runs the company, will have to find a quiet boardroom and again, voice that over the phone. He doesn't mind doing it because he wants to get his system up and running. But again, it's not his wheelhouse. Or you, the hipster, geek guy, will be, that's you guys, will be commissioned to do the voicing. I make a lot of contact on LinkedIn and places like that. And I zero in on resellers because they seem to be a market that just hates doing the voiceovers themselves naturally, because again, it's not what they do. And they're usually pretty happy to make contact with a talent. We're out there, we're not that hard to find, but they just seem extremely grateful that they have someone to recommend who's a pro. So, hire a pro, and you can hire that pro. Oops, I'm not supposed to be promoting myself, but why not? So I always make the analogy to pizza. So I'm a pretty good cook at home, and I actually make pretty good pizza. If that's what I did all day, every day, I would make fantastic pizza. So it is, there's no big science to what I do. There's really, it's not a lot of heavy lifting, but it is a skill set, and it's worth it to source it to a professional voice talent to get that done. So going further into my vision of what a good IVR should be, to be specific, a good IVR obviously should welcome genuinely. It sets the tone. It involves the caller. So that's another really key thing, is to, especially if you anticipate, hopefully with your call center, there's not a lot of wait time for the callers, but if there is, enlist their help. Saying things like, while we're waiting for an agent, you could really help us out by making sure you have your claim number ready and stuff like that. So sort of involving them in the process. A good IVR also should not exhaust the caller. It seems like a very, very obvious, obvious thing to say, but it's amazing how many systems seem to be designed in a complicated way, almost like you want to send the caller through a maze, which is never what you want. So a hot dog vendor does not set up a collision course on the sidewalk to make it as difficult as possible to purchase something from him. He makes it as easy as possible. It's amazing how many IVRs project themselves as almost like a contest to win, to get to the end, to get to the customer service that you want. So to reiterate, no bouncer mentality. We're not trying to keep callers out. We're not trying to reward callers for getting ahead of other callers. We are not going to see it as a holding pen. And it's not a country club. We want to welcome everybody because their opinion of the company is formed at the very, very onset of the phone call. So, and of course, no waiting room purgatory type situation. Always remember that the caller's time and patience is shorter than you think it is. You're striving for an IVR which reflects the company's personality, establishes what it will be like to deal with the company, truly engages the caller, and makes the caller an active participant in the process. I recently did a system for a chain of H&R Block agencies, and they had me actually start in March with really fun, kind of laid back tax preparation messages, and they kind of went sort of like, well, aren't you organized? It's only March and you're already thinking about this. You're such a good boy. We'll get you through to an agent. And then they had me do messages progressively, I guess more escalated in April as April got, as it progressed. And they weren't panicky, but they were kind of like, ooh, okay, it's the last 2 weeks in April. Let's do this. Let's get this done. So it was reassuring, and yet there was sort of a sense of urgency. I like that, not only because it kept me busier and they were constantly updating their IVR during those couple of months before tax time, but I just think it sends a message to the caller that somebody's really maintaining the IVR and looking after it. And of course, always respect the caller's time and patience. And never, ever, or get away from the idea of thinking of an IVR as something that just answers the phone. That is pretty much the end of it. It's kind of early. I'm hoping people have many, many, many questions to fill up 10 minutes. Do I have cookies? I have no cookies. I'm sorry. I have no giveaway. Mr. Resnick from France. Oh, yep.
Allison, you and I have talked for hundreds of hours, probably, in person.
Yep.
And online. Well, tens.
Hasn't felt like hundreds.
Hundreds of minutes. And I've never asked you this, and everybody knows that I'm in music myself.
Yep.
And you haven't mentioned it that I recall ever. How do you feel about music on hold? MOH is part of every system,
Yeah.
and some do, some don't. Well, if you're doing all this, some of the things that you said, good and bad,
Yeah.
you wouldn't want music. But just the open question of how do you feel about music on hold?
On hold systems.
Hold meaning during the process.
Yeah, exactly. During IVR or actual?
During IVR, well, both.
Okay, so with IVR, it's usually a bad idea to have music playing behind prompts, just simply because when people make a choice, it's going to be very disjointed when they choose 3, and then the music starts up again. So I usually vote against that. I usually install what I call flurries. If anyone's had systems done by me, it's sort of like think of the T-Mobile charm, but it's not quite like that. So I try to work that in at the very beginning, but any music behind actual IVR prompts, not a great idea. On-hold systems are a different thing. If people are expecting to be actually waiting on the phone on hold, it's a great idea to play a little bit of royalty-free music, not anything that you grab. Somebody wanted me to use a Michael Jackson song behind.
Yeah, right.
We don't make that much money to afford that. So yes, but again, with on-hold systems, I'm against the idea of people being on hold for
Any length of time.
any longer than, I don't know, a couple minutes.
Your
Yes.
parodies, which I hope everybody's heard, we should have had a good URL for
Yeah, we
those.
should have,
With
yeah.
the Carl Fife thing, for example, you actually purposely put in the atrocious, what your call is, and then they would immediately fade in the horrible music that's very repetitive.
Yeah,
So I
he
guess
loves that music track. He actually asked for it and plays it, I don't know, on his iPod.
That's pretty funny.
Yeah. Cool.
Okay, there are many sources of royalty-free music online, obviously, so
Right.
it's very easy to find.
Yeah.
Simon has a question now.
Oh, Simon.
We need to fill the time. Oh, well, obviously. Ladies and gentlemen, I don't
boy,
know if
here
you
we
know
go.
Mr. James Bodie. I don't know if you know Mr. James Bodie, but here he
James,
is.
if only you would come out of your shell.
Well, I'll try not to be too meek and mild. So, Allison, I understand
Jamesy.
that after many years of being the voice of Asterisk,
Yes.
you are now recording a complete set of vocab for Free Switch.
Free Switch.
Would you like to tell us all about that?
It was just kind of a good timing thing where I just sort of felt like I needed more to occupy my time. And Free Switch was looking for a new voice, so it's kind of turned out to be a good thing. So as soon as I get home, I'm going to start recording the core sounds. And I will, of course, be at ClueCon in Chicago this summer. So I'm really looking forward to it. And as far as I can tell, Kathleen's beaming over there, they're looking for maybe a bit more of a natural cadence, kind of more of a casual sound than the typical asterisk prompt. So I'm really looking forward to giving it kind of more of a natural, more conversational without disappearing into Kardashian or vocal fry, which are pet peeves of mine. And actually, I'm getting into kind of a side business of vocal coaching, particularly young women, to get them to stop doing vocal fry, which kind of sounds like that, and or doing upspeak, which is where the ends of the sentences sound like a question, even if they're not a, yes, it's having a resurgence. So yeah, it's a whole little cottage industry is vocal coaching.
I've been hearing a lot of that.
Yeah. Do you hear it in France?
Wondering?
Is it a French thing? I don't know. No, it's a North American thing. Oh, that's terrible.
Okay, and also remember that RTP proxy can also play some sounds in the middle of the call. You
Yeah.
just need to take it from the WAV file into some other format. Maxim is here, probably can provide you a bit more details. So the initial developer of RTP proxy. So you can actually go and just use with Kamailio some nice announcements at the beginning or the end of the call. Not really, maybe at the beginning more than at the end of the call. Because then once we get the buy, it's a bit harder to inject it. But again, so it's there are some tricks that you can do with Kamailio only and RTP proxy, and I think RTP engine has it in the plan to do this playing in the middle. If they didn't do it already, I haven't checked that, but they develop so fast that I can't keep with them and my work with Kamailio. Other questions we have here, Sven?
Hello. I was wondering, how did you get to become a professional speaker, and what would be your recommendations for new people interested in doing that?
Great question. I actually got into it accidentally, so I have a degree in theater, and that was always the dream, was to be kind of a theatrical actress, and I had a reasonable amount of success with that in film, and I still do some film and commercials, but I started doing radio commercials as a way of paying the bills in between acting jobs, and it just kind of took over. And Digium in Alabama approached me about doing Asterisk, and I had no idea how massive it was going to be. I just sort of did it thinking it was a one-off, and it turned out to be this amazing thing that sort of put me on the map for IVR. So advice to voice talent, I do actually get approached a fair amount by people that want to get into the industry. And I always say that it's extremely important to have a niche, much like IVR is for me. I have lots of other colleagues that do nothing but e-learning modules, so online training courses, and that's a whole thing that you can build an entire career on. I know a lot of people, when they think of voiceover, they think of animation, they want to be Bart Simpson, and that's really competitive and very geographically dictated. You have to be in Los Angeles or New York or Vancouver to do a lot of the animation voiceover stuff. So yeah, I always tell people just get a niche and really, really devote your time to that. I've almost stopped doing radio and TV campaigns. It's very seldom I do them anymore, just because IVR is full-time and something I really, truly love doing. Something different every day. It's colonoscopies one day and it's taxes the next. It's, yeah. Oh, yes, Ule.
Ule.
So,
So
I remember the first Astricon, but I'm still curious. When you opened the door and saw a room filled with nerds that just loved listening to you, what was going on inside your brain?
well, if you remember that first Astricon, I wasn't aware that they even knew who I was, and I'm actually essentially very shy. So I remember going down to the big party that was happening, going, okay, now you have to force yourself to introduce yourself to all these guys, and you got on one of those microphones and introduced me, and I was pretty much kind of mobbed. I needed security to get out of there. So it's just strange. It's an odd kind of, yeah.
Well, I think we have different memories, because I remember you being totally shocked and stunned for 10 seconds, then you started handing out business cards.
Yeah, pretty much. Yeah. And then people would come up and say, you recorded this for me, do you remember? And I'm like, no. Yeah. And even now at Astricon, everybody kind of blends into one great big nerd. And I love them all, but yeah, a lot of times I have met people for 10 years and can't really remember because it's just overwhelming. So I'm really fortunate to have this gig. Yes.
Hi, Allison. Thank you for the presentation. Question I have, what do you use on technical side to do recording, like which hardware, software? And also, are you doing some post-processing of your recordings, like filtering and stuff?
So that's always a question that disappoints people because they always presume that I will use something like Pro Tools to work with sound files, and I just like to keep it so simple. And also, it's extremely important that a lot of my settings don't change and that I don't experiment and try different things because, the sound files from 5 years ago need to match with stuff that I do today. So I actually use WavePad out of NCH Software Australia. I've used it for years. You can't mess it up, and that's why I stick with that. My microphones, I have a tendency to kind of shuttle through those every now and then. I use a Rode Broadcaster, and I actually found a Shure vintage microphone that has just a beautiful soft sound. So generally women want to have a mic that gates out the sibilant S's and that kind of thing. Yeah. As for processing, I try to do as little as possible, but there's always like a little bit of sweetening that happens. Yeah. Yeah. But it's not complicated. I know people wish I had like massive control boards and stuff. It's just not needed. I don't do a lot of multi-track mixing. Yeah.
So the voice matters actually, not technology here. Okay, Allison, I think we have to go to the next presentation, but it was really great, and I'm sure the people will approach you for more discussion because everyone, we are here in a small area. So thank you again. Thank you for coming from Canada.
Thank you.